Welcome to the Big Game Hunting Podcast, where we help hunters like you prepare for the big game hunting adventures you've always dreamed of. Now, here's your host, John McAdams.
Hello, John McAdams here, and you are listening to episode 131 of the Big Game Hunting Podcast. Well, I got another cartridge comparison episode for you today. And in this episode, we are going to talk about the 6.5 Creedmoor and how it compares to the 7mm-08 Remington. There's a big overlap in their capabilities, and both cartridges are marketed for a lot of the same hunting uses these days. However, as you'll learn here shortly, there are some significant differences between the 6.5 Creedmoor and 7mm-08 cartridges that you should be aware of. Just like with everything involving the 6.5 Creedmoor, there's unfortunately a lot of hype and misinformation out there regarding how these two cartridges compare to each other that really muddies the water. Not surprisingly, while each cartridge offers certain benefits to hunters, it is still easy to get confused when trying to understand their actual strengths and weaknesses. So, in this episode, I am going to discuss the pros and cons of the 6.5 Creedmoor and 7mm-08 Remington cartridges so you can make an informed decision on which is best for you. Before we get started with that comparison, I do want to remind you that the Utah application deadline is coming up fast. This episode was released on 25 February 2021, and the Utah deadline to apply for deer, elk, pronghorn, moose, mountain goat, and sheep is for March. So if you're listening to this episode right after it releases, you still have time to get that application in, but don't mess around. Next up after Utah is New Mexico, and their application deadline will be around 17 March this year. Like I mentioned back in episode 123, both of those states are part of my hunting draw plan. Utah is part of my long-term strategy, and while I'll still put in this year, I probably won't draw a tag this year, but hey, you never know. Since New Mexico doesn't have a point system, nothing is ever guaranteed there, but you can quite often have better odds of drawing a particular tag in any given year compared to many other states. Now, nobody can apply for every species in every state. I certainly don't. And depending on where you live, what your goals are, and what your budgetary constraints are, you might have different priorities from me, and that's fine. So if you haven't already done so, now would be a good time to go over to GoHunt.com and sign up for their insider program to get the information you need to craft a plan to fulfill your dream hunt out west. They provide the essential information necessary to make a realistic plan to draw the tags for the species you're most interested in so that you can make the most of your limited time and money. When I first signed up for my insider membership, I had already been applying in a couple of different states for a few years, and I got a rude shock when I discovered that I had been applying for a bunch of hunts that I had literally no chance of drawing. So basically, I'd been throwing money away. However, things changed immediately once I signed up for my Go Hunt Insider membership. Using the information they provided, I quickly adjusted my plan and started applying for some more realistic tags, and I started drawing tags that very first year for what turned out to be some great hunts. Long story short, the cost of my insider membership was money well spent, and I've saved way more money by not throwing it away on futile applications than I've spent on my Go Hunt membership. So go to GoHunt.com and sign up for an insider membership today. Use promo code BIGGameHunter when you do so for $50 in store credit at their online gear shop. All right, now let's talk about the 6.5 Creedmoor and the 7mm-08 Remington. As is the case with many cartridges, the story of the 7mm-08 Remington and the 6.5 Creedmoor really begins with the .308 Winchester. First unveiled by Winchester all the way back in 1952, the new .308 Winchester cartridge quickly developed a reputation for accuracy, power, and efficiency with hunters and shooters. As is the case with many good cartridges, wildcatters and gun designers started modifying the .308 to develop new and more specialized wildcat cartridges almost immediately after it hit the market. Among others, the .243 Winchester, 260 Remington, 338 Federal, and 358 Winchester are all descended from the legendary 308 Winchester, as designers neck the case up or down as necessary to shoot smaller or larger 6mm, 6.5mm, 33 caliber, or 35 caliber bullets, respectively. Well, the 7mm-08 Remington is yet another cartridge derived from the 308 Winchester. Standardized by Remington in 1980, the 7mm-08 Remington uses a modified 308 Winchester case necked down to shoot 7mm bullets. Similar to the difference between the 25-06 and the 30-06, by necking down the 308 case to shoot smaller caliber bullets, the designers of the 7mm-08 built a cartridge with a higher velocity, flatter trajectory, more resistance to wind drift, and less recoil than the 308 Winchester. The 7mm-08 Remington uses the same .284-inch bullets as the 7mm Mauser and 7mm Remington Magnum, and it provides a great balance of adequate power for hunting a wide variety of game, moderate recoil, and great external ballistics. Indeed, the 7mm-08 Remington was one of the most popular cartridges among deer hunters, as well as for big game hunters in general, who valued those characteristics for a very long time. Things eventually changed a little bit when the 6.5 Creedmoor came along and provided another option for hunters searching for something with those performance characteristics. Unveiled in 2008, the 6.5 Creedmoor was the brainchild of Dave Emery and Dennis DeMille. They designed the cartridge in an effort to gain an edge in high-power rifle competition shooting, which had been long dominated by the 308 Winchester. Basically, they wanted a new cartridge that could fit in a short-action magazine and was just as accurate as the 308 Winchester, but with less recoil, less wind drift, and a flatter trajectory. By modifying a 30 Thompson center case to shoot .264-inch bullets, they successfully built a cartridge with a relatively large case capacity optimized for use with 4350 class propellants that could also accommodate long, heavy, high ballistic coefficient bullets without intruding into the powder column. Named the 6.5 Creedmoor in honor of the Creedmoor matches and designed for use with a relatively fast 1 and 8-inch rifling twist rate, Emery and DeMille were quite successful in their goal of building the ideal competition shooting cartridge. A pretty representative 6.5 Creedmoor load shoots a 140 grain bullet at about 2,700 feet per second. So the 6.5 Creedmoor does not have eye-popping ballistics, but it does have minimal recoil, is very accurate, and uses high BC bullets that retain energy and resist wind drift exceptionally well. And like the 7mm-08 Remington, the new 6.5 Creedmoor cartridge had less recoil, a flatter trajectory, and more resistance to wind drift than the 308 Winchester, just as designed. For these reasons, the cartridge has seen a great deal of success in the hands of competition shooters and has recently made the jump into the mainstream hunting community. Now let's talk a little bit about the external dimensions of those cartridges. First, the 7mm-08 and the 6.5 Creedmoor are very similar in size and use a rimless bottlenecked case. They are both designed for use in short-action rifles and have similar case lengths as well as overall lengths. Both cartridges also have the same .473-inch rim diameter. As far as differences go, bullet size is one of the most obvious differences between the 6.5 Creedmoor and 7mm-08. Each cartridge uses different diameter bullets. 264 caliber or 6.5 millimeter for the Creedmoor, and 284 caliber or 7 millimeter for the 7mm-08. There is also a big overlap in the most common bullet weights for each cartridge, though. 7mm-08 Remington factory loads most often use 120 to 160 grain 7mm bullets. 120, 140, 150, and 160 grain bullets are the most common for that cartridge. On the other hand, the 6.5 Creedmoor often utilizes bullets in the 95 to 160 grain range, with 120, 129, 140, and 143 grain bullets being the most common. The 6.5 Creedmoor also has a slightly less tapered case with a steeper 30-degree shoulder, while the 7mm-08 has a 20-degree shoulder. So even though the 6.5 Creedmoor has a noticeably shorter case than the 7mm-08, the Creedmoor actually has a tiny advantage in case capacity. The 6.5 Creedmoor is also loaded to a higher pressure than the 7mm-08 of 62,000 psi versus 61,000 psi for the max SAME specifications. Now, the similarities and differences in the external dimensions of the 6.5 Creedmoor and the 7mm-08 Remington translate into some interesting differences in their ballistic performance. For instance, let's compare some Hornady and Nosler factory ammunition that are representative of each cartridge. The 6.5 Creedmoor loads use a 140 grain ballistic tip and a 143 grain ELDX, while the 7mm-08 loads use a 140 grain ballistic tip and a 150 grain ELDX. Interestingly enough, even though the 6.5 Creedmoor is touted as an outstanding long-range cartridge, both of these 7mm-08 Remington loads outperform comparable 6.5 Creedmoor loads on paper at typical hunting distances. The differences between the two cartridges are admittedly very small in this area, but the 7mm-08 has a flatter trajectory, less bullet drop, and more kinetic energy than the 6.5 Creedmoor, all the way out to 500 yards. Like I said, though, the differences are pretty small, and we're talking just a couple of inches in difference in trajectory. However, both of those 6.5 Creedmoor loads use a more aerodynamic bullet with a higher ballistic coefficient than the 7mm-08 bullets used in those comparable loads. So while the 7mm-08 starts off with somewhat more kinetic energy, that gap narrows as range increases. With that all in mind, though, realize that the two cartridges are actually very similar in performance in these areas. Now, the same goes for how much wind affects these same loads at typical hunting ranges. Once again, the two cartridges are fairly evenly matched. The 7mm-08 has a little bit less wind drift with the Nosler ballistic tip loads, but the 6.5 Creedmoor has a tiny bit less wind drift with the Hornady ELDX loads. In each case, there's 1 inch or less of difference in wind drift at 500 yards between the two cartridges. Now let's talk about recoil, though, which is where the 6.5 Creedmoor really shines. With these loads, the 6.5 Creedmoor has significantly less recoil than the 7mm-08. In this case, the 7mm-08 has approximately 20% more free recoil energy than the 6.5 Creedmoor. And that is really saying something too, because the 7mm-08 is known for pretty mild recoil itself. Now, many shooters should be able to handle the recoil of both cartridges without much trouble, but the 6.5 Creedmoor still does have a big edge in this respect, especially for smaller or recoil-shy hunters. Now, we're going to come back to this point in a second. So where do we stand with each cartridge? Well, the 6.5 Creedmoor fires smaller diameter and more aerodynamic bullets than the 7mm-08 Remington. Both cartridges have a similar trajectory, but the 7mm-08 retains more kinetic energy than the 6.5 Creedmoor at typical hunting ranges, while the 6.5 Creedmoor has less recoil. All things considered, the two cartridges are fairly evenly matched. The Remington cartridge has tiny advantages in trajectory and retained kinetic energy downrange, while the 6.5 Creedmoor has less recoil. However, they each have specific advantages over the other that are worth discussing in a little bit more detail. Now, the biggest advantage the 7mm-08 has over the 6.5 Creedmoor is the fact that it uses larger diameter bullets. Specifically, the larger diameter .284 caliber bullets used by the 7mm-08 have about 15% more frontal surface area than the .264 caliber bullets used by the 6.5 Creedmoor. All other things being equal, a bigger bullet will make a bigger hole, cause more tissue damage, and result in more blood loss. especially when combined with the fact that the 7mm-08 carries more kinetic energy downrange than the 6.5 Creedmoor. Those larger diameter bullets are certainly helpful when hunting larger game. On the other hand, the 6.5mm bore diameter is also something of a sweet spot where it's easy to manufacture very high BC bullets that aren't especially heavy. Those aerodynamic projectiles don't slow down as fast and are more resistant to wind drift. At the same time, the 6.5 Creedmoor also has a slight edge over the 7mm-08 in bullet sectional density, especially with heavier bullets. Sectional density is a measure of the ratio of the diameter of a projectile to its mass. All other things equal, a heavier projectile of a given caliber will be longer and therefore have a higher sectional density and consequently penetrate deeper than projectiles with a lower mass and lower sectional density. For example, 120 grain and 143 grain .264 caliber bullets have sectional densities of .246 and .293 respectively. This compares favorably to 120 grain, 140 grain, and 150 grain .284 caliber bullets, which have sectional densities of .213, .248, and .266 respectively. So those high sectional density bullets used by the 6.5 Creedmoor assist with penetration to help the cartridge, quote-unquote, punch above its weight in a manner similar to the 7x57mm or 9.3x62mm Mauser cartridges. What about the accuracy of these cartridges? So while the 7mm-08 Remington is certainly capable of outstanding accuracy, this is another area where the Creedmoor most likely has the edge as well. After all, the 6.5 Creedmoor was specifically designed as a competition shooting cartridge. At the same time, since it utilizes .264 caliber bullets, there is a bigger selection of high BC and high sectional density match-grade hunting bullets available for that cartridge. That's not to say that the 7mm-08 isn't accurate or that there aren't a bunch of good quality bullets available for it. It's just that the overall design of the 6.5 Creedmoor gives that cartridge an edge over the 7mm-08 Remington in potential accuracy. All things considered, the low recoil and wide selection of high BC match-grade hunting bullets for the 6.5 Creedmoor facilitate exceptional accuracy and help maximize the shooting abilities of the hunter using the cartridge to a greater degree than the 7mm-08. Another often overlooked but hard to quantify factor is that the 6.5 Creedmoor just has a reputation for accuracy. Since it has that reputation, hunters and shooters expect that sort of performance out of their 6.5 Creedmoor rifles and ammo. Therefore, manufacturers put lots of effort into making good quality rifles, loaded ammo, and 6.5 Creedmoor reloading components because they know if they fail in their efforts to produce good quality products, they are more likely to hear from users of the 6.5 Creedmoor express their displeasure with them than they would be for other cartridges. So it's possible that we're getting some sort of a feedback loop here. Manufacturers feel more pressure than with other cartridges to make accurate guns and ammo for the 6.5 Creedmoor, so they work harder to fulfill those expectations. When their stuff makes the grade, it reinforces the reputation of the 6.5 Creedmoor as an accurate cartridge, and so on. And once again, I'm not saying that this doesn't happen elsewhere, and like I also said, it's something that is hard to quantify, but this could also be an explanation for the accuracy reputation of the 6.5 Creedmoor. Now let's talk about ammo. The 6.5 Creedmoor is likely one of the 5, maybe even top 3 most popular cartridges in the USA right now. That said, even if it's not quite as widely used as the 6.5 Creedmoor, the 7mm-08 Remington is also an extremely popular cartridge itself. So all the big ammunition manufacturers like Barnes, Browning, Federal Premium, Hornady, Nosler, Remington, and Winchester all produce a variety of quality 6.5 Creedmoor and 7mm-08 Remington factory ammunition suitable for hunting. During normal times, it is usually very easy to find ammo for both cartridges and almost any gun or sporting goods store will have a wide variety of ammo for both cartridges in stock. That said, they will probably have a little bit bigger selection for the 6.5 Creedmoor. Reloading components for both cartridges are also widely available, and there is an especially wide variety of bullet choices for each cartridge. This is because the 6.5 Creedmoor shoots the same .264 caliber bullet size that's also used by the 6.5 Swede, the 6.5 Grendel, the 260 Remington, and the 6.5 PRC, among others. While at the same time, the 7mm-08 Remington uses the same .284 caliber bullet size as the 7mm Mauser, the 280 Remington, the 280 Ackley Improved, the 7mm Weatherby Magnum, and the 7mm Remington Magnum. So bullets like the Barnes LRX, TSX, TTSX, and TACX, the Berger Hybrid Hunter and VLD, the Hornady AMAX, ELDX, GMX, Interbond, Interlock, and SST, the Nosler AccuBond, AccuBond Long Range, Ballistic Tip, E-Tip, and Partition, the Swift Sirocco and A-Frame, and the Federal Trophy Copper, just to name a few, are all options if you want to reload either cartridge. Now let's talk about rifles. In addition to the abundant ammunition choices available in 7mm-08 and 6.5 Creedmoor, there are also many quality rifles manufactured in both cartridges. Just like with ammo, 6.5 Creedmoor rifles are a little more common than 7mm-08 rifles. Neither are rare though, so finding a good deer rifle shouldn't be an issue regardless of which cartridge you choose. Both cartridges are very common in bolt-action rifles like the Remington 700 and Winchester Model 70, the Browning AB3, Browning X-Bolt, Kimber Hunter, Mossberg Patriot, Nosler M48, Ruger American Predator, Ruger Hawkeye, Savage Axis, Savage 110, the Tikka T3X, and the Weatherby Vanguard are all available in both cartridges. So which one is right for you? Do you primarily hunt medium-sized game like whitetail deer or feral hogs at ranges within 200 yards? They're both absolutely outstanding deer hunting cartridges, and both will absolutely get the job done on medium-sized game if you do your part, and there isn't a gigantic difference between them ballistically inside of 300 yards. Are you looking for the better cartridge for long-range hunting for game like mule deer or pronghorn in open country where you might need to take a shot at several hundred yards? Once again, both are great in this area, but the 7mm-08 has a tiny bit flatter trajectory and carries a little bit more energy out past 200 yards. Do you want a hunting cartridge that's well suited for bigger game like caribou, moose, elk, eland, kudu, or red stag hunting? I consider both to be a little on the light side, but I would lean towards the 7mm-08 in this area for most hunters because it shoots larger diameter bullets that carry more kinetic energy downrange. The 6.5 Creedmoor has a little bit less room for error, but it will still work though, especially with heavy bullets. Now what about if you're sensitive to recoil and you need a lower recoiling cartridge? The 6.5 Creedmoor does have significantly less recoil than the 7mm-08 Remington, especially in a lighter rifle. So while the 7mm-08 isn't a really heavy recoiling cartridge, the 6.5 Creedmoor does win this area hands down. Do you want the round that is best suited for target shooting out past 400 yards or so in a precision rifle? Well, the 6.5 Creedmoor is significantly better for work at longer ranges since it has such a mild recoil and since it is specifically designed to shoot very high BC bullets. So of these two cartridges, it would be my first choice for a long-range shooter. Now the 6.5 Creedmoor and the 7mm-08 Remington are both excellent rifle cartridges, albeit ones with different strengths and weaknesses. Though the differences between them are significant in certain respects, they are suitable for a pretty big range of hunting tasks. Get a good hunting rifle chambered in the cartridge you think fits your needs the best, learn to shoot it well, use quality bullets, and you'll be all set for most hunting situations. Now, I have written a really detailed article about the 6.5 Creedmoor and the 7mm-08 cartridges and how they compare to each other. I will be sure to put a link to that article in the show notes if you want to check it out. You can see some photos of the cartridges as well as some detailed ballistic tables that talk about what I just discussed with you in a little bit more detail. Additionally, I have also done an episode comparing the 6.5 Creedmoor to the 243 Winchester, which is another really popular hunting cartridge that also overlaps with the 6.5 Creedmoor in terms of their capabilities and what they're marketed for. To learn more about those cartridges and how they compare to each other, check out episode 121 of the podcast. What about you? Which one do you prefer? The 7mm-08 or the 6.5 Creedmoor? Send me a direct message on Instagram at TheBigGameHunter or email me at john@thebiggamehuntingblog.com and let me know what you think. And remember, if you are considering learning how to hunt with a muzzleloader, or if you already hunt with one and you just want to take your game to the next level, then you need to check out the Muzzleloaders 101 course. That is my new all-in-one solution where I'll take you by the hand and guide you through the whole process of getting started hunting with a muzzleloader. I'll help you decide what gear you need, help you save money when you buy that gear, and teach you how to use all that stuff safely and effectively, both at the range and out in the woods. Plus, we are giving away a free muzzleloader to one of the first 100 people who sign up for the course. To take advantage of this opportunity, head on over to muzzleloaders101.com/buy, B-U-Y, or click the link in the show notes and sign up to get started. Now, the fact that you are listening to this podcast means that you are serious about making your hunting dreams come true. Remember, you can make your dream hunt turn into a reality, and we can help. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you back here next time on the Big Game Hunting Podcast.
This show may be over, but we have plenty more for you on our website. For more information on today's topic, as well as lots of other useful hunting resources, head over to thebiggamehuntingblog.com. We look forward to having you back for the next episode. But until then, happy hunting.